Hi, I'm David Price, and I'm with NALAS Engineering Services. I'm the Director of Business Development and a PhD organic chemist with 16 years of experience in the field of energetic materials. Today I'm going to tell you about our work on an STTR program directed at improvements in the manufacturing and associated costs of the energetic material Cl20. I also hope to help you get more familiar with NALAS and our capabilities. NALAS is a small business started by Jerry Salen in 2008 and located in Connecticut. We're an organization of chemical engineers and chemists working together to develop and transition safe, sustainable, and low-cost chemical processes. We have tremendous experience and expertise in energetics for the U.S. government and in pharmaceutical manufacturing. Our business normally runs about 50-50 between R&D in those two areas. We also focus heavily on continuous chemical processing to aid in controlling costs, quality, and safety. Over the last decade, we have grown from just a few team members to an organization of over 40. We've been fortunate to have had a lot of success with winning SBIRs and STTRs and transitioning those into Phase 2 programs. In addition to our headquarters, where we do research and pilot development, we also have a manufacturing facility that we recently purchased that will enable NALAS to begin manufacturing chemicals such as those identified as critical chemicals by the OUSD. The Navy challenge that NALAS is addressing here is for energetic ingredients. Specifically, the Navy needs advanced energetic materials whose output exceeds that of HMX, which is the highest energy organic compound that is mass produced. But it's not just the energy level that is a challenge. Whatever chemical ingredient that you want to use to replace HMX, you must be able to manufacture it at a reasonable cost and safely. By reasonable, I mean it needs to be ideally the same as HMX, but more realistically, it should be at least in the same ballpark. We've heard and seen that these energetic materials are considered commodity chemicals, but they really are not. These are specialty chemicals that can only be produced at a small number of locations in the U.S. One of the problems we have in this energetics industry is that we are still using ingredients that we have been using for decades, such as TNT, RDX, and HMX. We haven't successfully developed good, high-performance energetic materials that can transition to production and integration into systems at a reasonable cost. Here you can see the key desired properties of new energetic ingredients as defined by the Navy in this project. Most of the properties are tied to performance with one, the number of synthetic steps, relating directly to cost, as the more steps required to make a chemical, then the more chemicals you use, the more waste you create, the more labor you put in, and so on. Each of the other properties may not be hard to achieve individually, such as a new ingredient that can melt above 200 degrees Celsius. But when one is trying to hit all of the targets, it's very challenging and leaves few options. The graph shown here comes from a DARPA paper highlighting common DoD needs for range and speed of weapons. I included this to show that the need for higher energy materials is not just with the Navy, but is a concern for all of the DoD. A material called Cl20, or hexanitroazoisovertane, is one of the few materials that can hit all of the marks for performance as required by the Navy. As shown here, Cl20 has a much higher density and corresponding energy than HMX, making it an ideal target for this work. However, Cl20, which is currently made in small quantities, costs more than 35 times as much as HMX. At that price, the gains in performance just cannot outweigh the cost. So Cl20 has found very little use in any weapon system, mostly just in some small detonators. This, even though the performance is really good, potentially allowing an increase in explosive and propellant performance of 10 to 20%. So our company is currently developing technology to synthesize Cl20 with a novel route to reduce the cost. Now, because the technical aspects of this work have been declared Distribution E, and because I don't have the time to bore you with the chicken wire chemical structures, I can't really go into the hows of what we are doing. But we project that with the new syntheses and modern chemical engineering tools, that with only a 5% final synthetic yield, this route can afford Cl20 with a similar price to what is found today. So, as we make improvements in the yield, Even what may seem incremental, major reductions to the cost should occur. Also, I should mention that we've been engaged on several other CL20 technologies, all with the focus of bringing the price down so that it is a viable alternative to HMX to the Navy scientists developing new weapon systems and platforms. So where are we now with this? We're working on optimization of the synthesis of the penultimate CL20 intermediate at the lab scale. We then will be able to actually make several grams of CL20 using this process so that our partners at Lawrence Livermore National Labs can characterize it and compare against legacy material. We also need to be able to generate a conceptual commercial process that will help us come up with a ROM cost of CL20 if produced with this novel route. Some of the key features of what we are doing go back to cost. Our technology uses inexpensive starting materials and only 2 synthetic steps, which is a major reduction from current technology. Reducing the number of steps also reduces the complexity of the process, which aids in scaling up to manufacturing. Also, we're trying to ensure that the raw materials we are using are U.S. sourced to give the benefit of security of supply, as we have seen time and again that when we are procuring products from outside of the U.S., we as a nation have little control or influence on that supply. Looking at the market, it can be hard to forecast how big CL20 can become. But we know at the current price, CL20 can only be used in very small, specialized applications at low volumes. We also know that the Navy, and in fact the DoD, needs to get CL20 into next-generation propulsion and ordnance systems. From the graph, you can see that cost and usage are tied together. An energetic material, such as RDX, that is inexpensive, gets utilized in a lot of applications because it is cheap. HMX, which is very similar in safety characteristics and chemical compatibilities, which means it could easily replace RDX in current systems, gets used far less than RDX solely because it costs more. In other words, if we could make HMX cheaper than RDX, we wouldn't need RDX. You can see on the green arrow the NALAS tech path highlighting where we are trying to get to from a cost standpoint, which would then enable CL20 to get adopted at levels similar to that of HMX. You can also see what the current industry path is using the current processes. That path will not get CL20 to a point of really being used to its full potential for our warfighters. We are also in the process of determining the steps required to become a manufacturer of CL20, and we fully intend on being the manufacturer of the non-energetic chemical precursor. But to get there, the development efforts need further funding to increase the manufacturing readiness level, or the MRL. As CL20 can increase range, speed, and lethality, multiple services will benefit in further investment into an affordable manufacturing process. Our mission at NALAS is to support the DoD with chemical process engineering and to be the premier transition agent for scaling novel chemistries, such as those for CL20. We have already demonstrated successful transitions of other critical energetic materials, such as BDNPA. Also called AF, this is a mixture of chemicals used as a plasticizer in both DoD and DOE systems. The problem we as a community faced was that there was no longer a U.S. source for the material, with only a limited stockpile overseas. NALAS saw the need for a new U.S. source and began work on developing a novel technology to produce it, starting with an SBIR effort. What started as this small project has moved through different stages with different government customers and different sources of funding to reestablish full-scale manufacturing of AF, starting in 2022. NALAS is always developing safe, modern, and affordable chemical processes and helping bring new chemicals to the DoD. And we're working to manufacture critical energetic materials and specialty chemicals for the U.S. government, helping with issues of obsolescence, OCONUS sourcing, and sole sources. So while we're working to make CL20 an affordable energetic material, We would love to hear from you on your chemical or chemical process needs. Thank you for your time.